I rise today in strong support of H.R. 3586, the Border and Maritime Coordination Improvement Act, and I believe that this bill will provide the Department of Homeland Security the tools and the authority to find efficiencies and to improve operations amongst all of its various components. In 2003, the Department of Homeland Security was cobbled together from 22 different offices and agencies, a very huge logistical and management challenge. And we knew that there would be significant growing pains before that agency would function well and as a unified department. Each component of the department, be it Customs and Border Protection or Immigration and Customs Enforcement or the U.S. Coast Guard, has a tendency to sort of operate in their own silos without the coordination required to make border and maritime security efforts as successful as they should be and can be. This has had a negative effect actually on logistics, on communications, and most importantly on operations. And so in an attempt to adopt a better structure with the goal of enhancing border security and maritime security operations, this legislation, Mr. Speaker, authorizes joint task forces on border security. And the goal of these task forces is to improve border security outcomes, and this legislation provides explicit authority to guide the task force operations and to allow this pilot concept to be utilized to secure our borders. Now, while this concept is not unique, we intentionally provided a sunset date for the Joint Task Force Authority to give the next administration the opportunity to come back to the Homeland Security Committee and to the next Congress and to demonstrate that this organizational structure has really contributed to border security, and it's not just simply another layer of bureaucracy. The second part of this bill, Mr. Speaker, requires the Department to take a very hard look at potential efficiencies in its maritime security efforts. Now, during my time as chair of the Subcommittee on Border and Maritime Security, we held hearings with CBP that addressed some of the overlap and the redundancies in the maritime environment, particularly with the units of the Coast Guard and the CBP air and marine operations that in many cases are in very close geographic proximity. So this bill also requires CBP's Office of Field Operations, the air and marine operations, and the Coast Guard to evaluate their role in the maritime and supply chain security to ensure that their missions are consistent with our current threats and to find ways to consolidate operations where possible. We think these steps are common sense, and I certainly think that they will help save our taxpayers a number of dollars and, most importantly, improve operations and coordinations for our Homeland Security. Again, finding creative ways to fund the staffing and infrastructure needs at our nation's aging ports of entry was really the driving force behind another piece of this legislation, which is the permanent authorization of CBP's Public-Private Partnership Program, which is also included in this legislation, allowing public and private sector port of entry operators and others to enter into agreements with CBP to fund small-scale infrastructure expansion or to fund overtime needs will improve security and, as well, increase the flow of commerce that is so vital to our economy. I want to specifically thank the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hurd, who will be speaking in just a moment, for offering the amendment, Mr. Speaker, during the markup regarding the authorization of public-private partnerships. His leadership on this issue has been absolutely vital to bringing this legislation to the floor today. And certainly I also want to thank Chairman Schuster and Representative Barletta from the Transportation Infrastructure Committee for working so diligently with us on this particular provision. Lastly, this bill authorizes the Department's Office of Biometric Identity Management, or OBIM as we call it, for the first time. Since 2003, biometrics have been a very important part of the nation's border security efforts. And the biometric service OBIM provides is not limited to any one component. It's a department and a government-wide asset, and for that reason, we believe that it should not be located in a single component like the CBP, where the information could again be siloed to the detriment of other Department of Homeland Security components. In order for biometrics to be used to their very fullest potential, we think we need to appropriately fund and modernize the data systems that power the matching and the collection of biometric information. Mr. Speaker, our borders can and should be secured, and we believe that this bill provides a framework to really help organize the Department for success and improve the coordination of border and maritime security components whose job it is to secure our great nation. So, at last, I would like to also thank the ranking member of our committee, Mr. Thompson, and the ranking member on our subcommittee, Mr. Vila, as well as all their staffs for working with us in the spirit of bipartisanship to strengthen our security. And I certainly ask our colleagues to support this common sense bill.